In real estate, you can form all kinds of different partnerships. We have traditional teams. You can be an individual agent. You can just work for a company, or you can do what we call a co-op. And in this episode, we're going to talk about co-ops and how they could benefit you. The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, a show that explores trending topics in real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. We're a small team of professionals with over $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 successful transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Welcome to the Den. Let's talk about what a traditional real estate agent may be involved with a team. Like, what does that look like? What are the pros? What are the cons? And some of the things we've noticed over the years. Shannon, I'm going to kick it off with you.
All right.
You're looking at me, so you get the first question. You've been involved with a traditional team before, somewhat, in the early 2000s. But we've evolved from there. Give us kind of a rundown of what you have experienced in a traditional team, or what you've noticed in a traditional team, and what you like and don't like about it.
So traditionally, real estate team would just be several people coming together, and you typically have a lead person, someone who's in charge of the team, and then people work under them. I think that the really good part about having a team, especially if you are a newer broker, is having people at your side, having people you can lean on, having people you can learn from, and also getting business from that team. I think one of the downfalls is, especially if you have been in the business for a little while, is that now you are paying someone else to be a part of that team. And that's, I think, if you have experience and you can stand on your own, that always isn't a good fit for people, because then, you may be at that point off generating your business or doing your business on your own name, on what you can accomplish. And now you are still having to pay others for being a part of a team. So there can be some good things, I think. I think it's really good for newer people. I think if you have been in the business for a while, you're probably better off being on your own, or being in a different type of a setting where you are actually contributing and benefiting from that. You can also benefit from a team, especially if you're new. Advertising, it can be very expensive to be in real estate. And we don't always, when we're starting out, have that kind of money or have that kind of exposure, have that kind of name that would draw people in to work with you. So I think that it can be, it can be good for somebody maybe new starting out. I think maybe if you are already a successful broker, you probably don't need a team. A
team per se, yeah. Mm-hmm. And there are those benefits there, because they, the lure is, hey, I'm going to send you a bunch of business. You're new to this industry, so jump on my team. You're going to pay me a cut, and then I'm going to feed you some business. But things can go wrong with that, especially if you're not being fed business, or you're not given the training. Now, Aspen, you actually built a successful team. I would say you were the instrumental cause of building a pretty good successful team at the last company you worked at. Now, obviously, there were owners there, and they were instrumental in that as well. But I would say that you really took the lead to building that. Share some thoughts on the pros and cons of what you experienced there.
I think, like Shannon said, one of the biggest pros is the owners, especially if the owners aren't licensed in the state that they own the company in, which is pretty common in a lot of places. Then you have someone that's not just the QB to be the first look over. So I know whenever I started at Coldwell, I would do my contracts and I would send it over to the office manager and then send it to the QB. So it's kind of like that middle step where the QB is not having to look over everything, more just like the final paperwork, because they're seeing everyone in the company. So if the team lead can take some of that burden, not the final check mark, just the initial look over, I think that's really appealing to people. Something that's kind of, I would say, the biggest negative of a team, but you are paying, I essentially look at it as like you're paying for the training, but a lot of teams aren't the brokerage. So it's like a team within the brokerage. So you're having to pay a split to your team lead and you pay a split to the brokerage. So that can be a pretty hefty hit, especially if they're taking 25% for a buy side, 50% for a listing. It can really start to be heavy, but real estate is relatively inexpensive to get into compared to other businesses that you can own in regards to what you can make. So I think one of the really, get trained good, do it right from the beginning. I think that's one of the best things that you can do when you're starting. So
with what you've experienced, have you seen realtors that close deals and make less than 50% of the commission that they've brought in?
Yeah, I had met with this girl. I hadn't been licensed very long, maybe 2 or 3 years. And we went to lunch together just to kind of chat. And she'd been licensed a little bit longer than me. And we're all pretty open about I think especially when you first get started, you kind of want to see, well, what's your brokerage doing? So we had sat down for lunch and we were kind of talking about different pay. And she had mentioned what she had got paid that year. And I knew she had sold more than me. And it was less than half of what I made. And I said, no, that can't be right. This doesn't make sense. And she started telling me what she was making from her brokerage and where the splits were going on the team she was, and then what that was to the brokerage. And I think, I don't know if she just didn't realize or hadn't done the math, or I don't know, but I was like, because she was talking about my brokerage, the splits being so high. That was what she kind of kept going on about. And I started doing the math where I was like, if you would have done at the same brokerage I am at, where the splits are high, you would have made it was like 150,000 more.
Wow.
It was it was not a small amount. It was, especially for a 20-something girl, because she had sold a lot, and she was mind blown.
Holy cow.
She went and had a conversation with her
That's an
team lead.
Expensive mistake.
Yep. And they made some changes.
Yeah. Oh.
Because she loved her team, but I just don't know if she hadn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really thought about the numbers outside of the team.
If she was just getting her paycheck and, not.
Yeah. And a lot of people get into it and they feel like all of a sudden they feel like they're in the team, and they may like their, the peers that they're working with, and they may like the direction that they're getting, but then they become reliant on it and don't realize that they can step outside and grow something bigger and stand on their own 2 feet and really not have to pay those fees. So a traditional team serves a purpose for a certain period of time, and then you get to that example and it's like, holy moly, that was an expensive mistake.
I think it makes sense when you're making 30, 40, 50,000. It kind of makes sense to have someone looking over your stuff. You're not doing deals regularly, so you need help for a little bit longer. If there's any changes to the contracts, it's throws you through a whole loop. You don't know what addendums you need. You don't know what info sheets you need. So I think at the beginning, it actually makes sense to join a team. I didn't, but I think that I had a really, really good brokerage that answered all of my questions and more, and had a really good training system set up. But if you're joining a brokerage that doesn't have that set up, and I don't consider online webinars to be good training, I think you need a hands-on person in the office to help you. If you have that, then you probably don't need the team. But a lot of brokerages say they offer it, and they do not offer the hands-on training. It takes a lot of time. There's a big turnover rate in real estate agents. Hi, this is Aspen Gruen. I'm a partner at the Lyons Group. We're dedicated to making your real estate experience the best it can be. If you're looking to buy or sell, go to sjcbroker.com and watch our informational video series. These videos break down the process and shed some light on buying or selling. While you're there, schedule a private consultation with one of our partners. We'd love to sit down, talk strategy, and give you a real advantage in today's market. You deserve the best, so take those steps, and we'll see you soon. Now back to the show.
Paul, we started out with kind of a traditional team setup, and then we moved to a co-op, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, I didn't like the original team setup. My wife didn't like it.
Yeah. Let's talk through that a little bit, because that was fun.
Well, the brokerage that we were in was 50% until you paid your desk fee, and then you were footing the bill, and I was paying off of what I made to you, so I wasn't paying in for advertising. That was a rough first couple of years.
Yeah.
But I remember back then being asked by everybody to join their team. I was having a little bit of success. They were saying, don't work with them, come over with us. We've got training. We'll help you do these things. And I was like, I've got Shannon. Yeah. I didn't touch a contract for the first 6 months. I tell everybody this. I was like, the first 6 months was not allowed to enter anything on the paperwork. She did everything. So I got the best training that money could buy. One of the things that I didn't like about all the offers for teams is you're stuck in a certain role, like you're a buyer's agent or you're a seller's agent. And I always ask, so what if your family member has to sell their house? Goes to the seller's agent or the team lead. I can't do that. I can just work with buyers. And as we all know, buyers are harder to work with than sellers. And at that point, we were all selling agents because you could have 20 houses at a time.
Another listing. Dang it.
Yeah. We wanted a buyer. We were all fighting for buyers.
Yeah.
trying to use the
different market then
buyer broker agreement to our advantage. But, I think it was different than a team, but the way we set it up, I wasn't making much money at the beginning.
Yeah. And you were just starting out. So what was funny was because, and I'm going to remind you of this because we started out kind of a traditional team where he would close some deals and he would kind of help reimburse. I would take a certain cut of what his closing were. That's a pretty traditional team. Like, so if you sign up for a team, just know, the team lead typically tries to feed you business. Of course, you're running out and trying to work your own business, but then they take a cut of everything that you make. And like what you said, oftentimes if you have a seller, it may be your mom, it may be you, but then you can't work your own seller lead because that belongs to the team lead. And so there's ins and outs there that you want to think about. But in this situation, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I just did the math. I remember now what I made. Until I paid my desk fee off, I was at 25%.
Yeah. Yep. So you were paying 50% to the house and 25% to me until you basically paid your dues.
Yep.
And then mine dropped down, I think, a bit. But it was funny because Paul, after like 2 years, the second year into it, you came to me and you're like, I don't like this, man. I feel like I'm really paying a lot. And I was like, oh, okay. So you want to be like a partner? You want to just split the bills 50-50? And he's like, yeah, I think that's better. And then I said, okay, then we won't have, I won't be making money off of you. You'll be partner in the business. And then I started handing in the bills and he went, I don't know if I like this. It was kind of a shock. And but you jumped up quick and we're like, wow, I didn't realize how much you were paying as the team lead. And it's different if you have 20 or 30 realtors under you. It was just you and I and Shannon at that point. And that money, you were paying less than what it was costing us to run the team at that point. And so that was a big eye opener for you in that instance. But then you're immediately like, well, I'd rather have a partner role. I'd rather be a partner in this than to continue to pay.
Well, I think there was no push to improve because I was only paying off of what I made. So if I have the bills coming in, it pushes you to do better.
Yeah. So there's
no fallback.
Yeah. The built-in incentive.
Yeah.
And we had a business model when we first started with Reopco that agents would come in and produce and we took care of everything. Like they just came in and produced. And so the tough thing, this is a big lesson for me, when the market crashed in 2008 and everyone stopped producing, I was still working 60, 70, 80 hours a week because I had to cover all the costs associated.
And they could wait the storm out because it wasn't costing them anything.
Didn't cost them anything.
So they can just kind of hang out until the market kind of bounces back or take what they can get. But those bills were still there and had to be paid regardless of whether that happened or not. So yeah, it was easy for the individuals to stay in business, but the brokerage couldn't stay in business like that.
Yeah. And so then there was no built-in incentive to produce. So you felt like there was a change. There had to be a built-in incentive at that point.
Yeah. And I got to a point where I was like, I remember demanding to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
it was tough at the beginning, but I got out of it. Now I'm back in that spot now.
Yeah. Well, it's just a motivation. It's a different motivation. Like you're either working for somebody else or you're working for yourself. And you're leveraging. And then that was a partnership at that point instead of one person making money off of the other.
But I also think that that's a huge reason how you became so successful years down the line is a lot of brokers, they come and they go. They come in and they don't have the money to sustain that. And they can't, they can't get their name out there. They don't have enough money to be every single place they need to be on every single, Zillow and buy some stuff on Realtor.com and maybe some print ads and maybe have a website. And, that takes money. So being able to piggyback on somebody else's until you've established your name can be huge. I mean, I'm all for it with a new broker. There came a point where you just became incredibly successful on your own. You didn't necessarily need that anymore. And you were getting business because of who you were. And I think that's when it switches over. And then, teams no longer benefit you in that way anymore.
So you grow out of the position, essentially.
Well, and usually in typical teams, I don't think the growing out, well, they don't usually change like we did. They usually leave the team.
Yeah.
Or go on their own.
Yeah.
Or leave a whole brokerage. We see that a lot and try to start up their own brokerage.
Yeah. And I think for our audience, this is fascinating for them, probably in the sense that you have people that have never been in real estate that are buyers and sellers that watch the show, and then you have realtors. And so this is kind of peeling back the layer of what you experience, because there's a lot of confusion out there. I mean, Aspen, do you experience some confusion from customers on like who's working what and who am I supposed to talk to? And with bigger teams, do people just get handed off? Clients get handed off? And what are some of those things that come to mind?
The only thing that I think people get confused about is people think you are my boss. They don't know that we are with RE/MAX. You're not my boss. We just split costs. Same for at the other. I don't think it was really a thing at my other brokerage, but I've noticed some other teams in town. They look like they are the brokerage. Yep. So I think that can be confusing because team leads do not have to be qualifying brokers. Now, I happened to be whenever I was doing it, but I was also helping because I was the first person at the last brokerage I was at. Loved that brokerage, but I was the first person in really working in and living in New Mexico. And so they moved down here because they were mainly in Durango and I was in both states. And so that's why I chose them. And then it ended up being great and I loved it. And then we grew it pretty big just in 5 or so years that I was with them. But I think that's confusing for people, is thinking that they are the team lead is the qualifying broker or the boss in the business. I think that's the biggest confusion. But as far as who's doing what, I've never had any issue with it, even whenever Shannon was doing transaction coordinating for me, or I had another person that was my assistant at my last brokerage. I never had people confused about who they should talk to because I feel like we were really good about sending like an introductory email of like, CC us both, but call me if you need anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I hear from customers all the time is like, if I work with you, are you going to hand me off to somebody else on your team?
Right. People are starting to get used to that happening and they don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that happen to me. It was fine. It ended up being fine, but I wasn't expecting it. Mm-hmm. Didn't love it.
Yeah. Well, what was the example? What happened?
Well, I was just selling my house and buying another one. And the person who was on the buy side was not who I had hired to sell my house. It was one of their associates. So it was just a little, it ended up being totally fine, but I wasn't aware that could happen.
Yeah. It was kind of took you off guard.
Because I didn't know her. It's not who I thought I was going to be working with, but
yeah, because a lot of people come into this and they go, I want to sell my house and I want to work with you. And then they start working with that person and then they get handed off to this person and then they're being contacted by this person and they're like, what's going on? Like if there's no fluidity there, that is a definitive channel of communication. Like here are the people in the roles. It can be very confusing to clients in general. I think that's one of my biggest heartburns with the big teams is that you get handed off oftentimes, and that's not good for customer service. We've set what we do up, and we'll get to that in a minute, but where we have as much face-to-face contact with our customers as possible because that's our role.
Yeah. Well, I even try when I'm doing TC work for anybody in this group, I always try to I stay quiet. I send an email or reach out where I need to, but I never try to be the first point of contact. I mean, if somebody hired you, they want you, they trust you, they're confiding in you, you know everything about them. You know, if I'm just helping on the back end and I'm just doing some paperwork and stuff, they don't need to, if they want to call me and they need some help, I'm more than happy to help them through that. But I never make them feel like, well, Ben is busy today, so we're going to do, X, Y, Z. Yeah. I don't ever want anybody to feel like you're not who they hired.
Sure. Yep. And then you've got the other side of that is the realtors themselves that, if you run a team and you have this constant training, you're training people up, you're trying to add people to the team, you're spending so much time on that. And then they outgrow the position, just like what we talked about. In 2 years, they're like, I can stand on my own. Why am I doing this? Why am I paying extra?
Yeah, I can't imagine how hard it is to be a team lead because you're footing all the bills. You're constantly figuring out how to come up with training or content or something for these people. You're trying to show value, add value to them, but everybody is going to eventually get out of that. So you're constantly doing that. How do you do that and find time to service your own clients and sell? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, some people are doing it successfully. I just would imagine they're probably exhausted and maybe even a little shorter on their finances that they could be if they were just dedicating their time to their customer. I think that's a huge job to take on. Yeah.
And that's where we really developed the co-op situation, is because over the years we went through that. Specifically at Reopco, we had built a fairly large team. I think we employed over 30 realtors And we saw that you're training people up, and then eventually they have to move on, life circumstances or whatever else. But you have you're constantly focused on this when you really should be focused on money making activities and closing deals and servicing your clients.
What are you doing with this pen?
Oh, I don't know. It makes me look smart.
You don't have paper.
I take notes.
He's got a Palm Pilot.
Yeah, that's right.
We're that old that we were the first realtors in town. We were cutting edge
With Palm Pilots.
That's right.
Do you remember Palm Pilots, Aspen?
They were not a thing.
Oh my gosh. You were way too young. And
I was just sitting over here, not in the conversation. I see a pen in your hand. You've got boots. You've gone full farmer now.
Yeah. Life is changing.
Hey, do you have one of those things that by your front door where like you scrape your boots off?
Oh, I looked at one this weekend.
You should get one.
I did. Yeah. I saw one this weekend and I thought that would be so nice because I hate walking in and I have to take them off at the door every single time because they are so dirty when I walk in.
Yeah. And they're a pain to get on and off. Once they're on, they're great. Getting them off and stuff. So
yeah.
Thanks for that, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
You have co-ops now.
Back to co-ops. And so that really, the thought of a co-op really came about was because we want partners. We want people that are vested in this. And to your point, Aspen, that's, the confusion with the customers. I think if we were something other than My Name Group, if we were Apex Group or something, there wouldn't be that confusion. It would be, we have 4 partners that work together, and it would be a little less confusing to the general public because I am not your boss. I'm not your boss or your boss.
I actually did have someone call the other day for some advertising, and I told him I just wasn't interested. And they were obviously looking at our website, and he said, and they probably just thought I was the boss. And so he called and I said, no, that's just not something I'm interested in. I said, I work really, with more of a team, and we kind of do things collectively, and, I'm not interested in doing anything on my, he goes, oh, so I need to call Ben and get permission from him. I said, yeah, go ahead and give Ben a call.
Good luck with that.
Give my boss a call and see if he's in for it.
You remember those big red buttons at Staples that say no? Yeah, I've got one of those.
I got one of those too.
No.
Yeah.
So back to the co-op component, the wonderful thing about it is that we work as a team. We're equal partners. We have the same motivations. We want to do the best for our clients that we can. And it gets rid of the, I'm going to make money off of you, Aspen, or I'm going to make money off of you, Paul. And we really can have those next level conversations about strategy, about direction, about customer service, about how to take where we want to evolve in the industry. And I think that's been a wonderful, I really think it's the way of the future for teams. To share your thoughts on
and
that.
We're not expecting anything from you either. Versus if I was on a team paying 25%, I would expect a lot.
Yeah, you better bring value for that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's one of the biggest things is you're not having to worry about keeping us happy and making sure we're not going to leave the team and giving value adds. You always hear about these value adds. And it's like, at some point, it's like, it almost turns into gimmicks a little bit where it's like, I don't need all of these things. And I see that a lot with brokerages too. I didn't realize I even said this whenever I was talking to Ryan and Randy, our qualifying brokers, the other day, and I was down there just shooting so I was talking to them, and they're like, we were talking about the team, blah, blah. And they said, well, whenever you started, you said you didn't really care about RE/MAX. And I was like, did I? Like, I'm not.
You did.
I know.
You did,
yeah, I did. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sure I said it in a nicer way, but I could have not too. But I was like, because how they said it, I thought maybe I said something like really rude or blunt. And they're like, yeah, you just said that it didn't really matter what brokerage, you just wanted to work with the Lyons Group. And I was like, oh yeah, I probably did say that, because at some point, I will say I have gotten business just from being at RE/MAX. Not enough to really sway me one way or another, but I feel like a lot of these brokerages are kind of giving, the online webinars, not from the local level, I'm talking like on the national scale. They really are relatively similar whenever you kind of get down to it. Some of them might feel a little bit more boutique, or their splits might be different, but you can only give so much value add before you're just doing the same thing as everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not rewriting the industry.
Yeah,
exactly. They may be saying things in a different way, or taking a few different paths, but it's
one of the other things too is a lot of teams, the team leader will give classes, or they'll be the ones that say, here's the topic for today and here's what we got to go over. And us, we kind of just have high level conversations or say what we're experiencing, and then come up with either better ways to do things or how to improve,
Yeah.
which is a lot better than I hear from other teams.
I do think QBs or team leads should have to have their qualifying broker, independent broker license, because they really are training and giving advice.
Yeah. Could you imagine being a qualifying broker and having several people underneath you training team members and you're not in control of that? That would be, yeah.
Yeah.
You also think about, one other thing that I want to say is, when you think about individually, like one of the reasons why we can do a podcast, why we have an amazing website, why we have the things that we have is because we collectively put it together. Whereas opposed if you have like a team lead who is doing all this stuff and then trying to keep these people busy enough to pay for it, that just becomes an awful lot of work, But we have amazing benefits. We all have amazing benefits being on this team, which we would not be able to do as an individual. We wouldn't have all these things.
It's not even the money too. It's the time, like doing the newsletter and the podcast and YouTube and our normal work. And, I'm out of town. And could you do a showing for me? Like all of these things take time. And we were just saying this morning, time is so valuable. It doesn't matter if you have the money to do it if you don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I really think co-ops are the way of the future. I think it's important you get the right and the critical partners that you need that have the same like-minded individuals that have foundational components that we all believe in improving our industry, doing it at the highest level of integrity that we can, giving back, and start really making our clients our priority, our top priority. And I think the co-op is the way of the future. So this is a great discussion. Blew by 30 minutes pretty quick. But if you're in the business, if you're in the real estate business in the space, and you want to understand more about co-ops, have a conversation with any one of us here at the Lyons Group. We'd be happy to sit down and give you some advantages of what this looks like and why it would behoove you to be in more of a co-op situation than a traditional team. I just went on a limb and said that, but I think we do a co-op really well, and maybe we should start teaching people how to do that. I think that's a great idea, something we should look at. On top of, you got enough time, right, Paul?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, when we're just sitting around, we could be doing that too.
That's right. So, well, thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. If you like our content, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our Facebook page. You can get all kinds of great content there. Sign up for our wonderful newsletter. It's pretty and it functions.
It's extra pretty this week.
Extra pretty and it functions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul made it very pretty this week.
And go to our website, sjcbroker.com. You can schedule a private consultation with anyone here at the Lyons Group. We'd love to sit down with you and give you an advantage in today's market. Whether you're buying or selling residential or commercial, we can help you out. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed and check the show notes below for direct links to our buyer and seller video series. The buyer and seller video series can give you an inside track on taking the right steps in real estate. If you'd like to learn more about the Lyons Group or to schedule a consultation, go to sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lyons Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in The Den.